go. Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Environmental Podcast.
We are your hosts and the founders of Dandelion Branding. I'm Aub, and this is Court.
Hello. And this is our podcast where we talk about the transition to a more sustainable future. And we've been interviewing folks about their role and how they are making the world a safer and more sustainable place. And we are so excited to be joined by Farah, who is the founder of The Ocean and Us, and also an author who just released a book with the same name, The Ocean and Us. Farah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yes, we are so excited to kind of dive into all of the work that you're doing. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure, yeah. So as the name suggests, The Ocean and Us, I work in the ocean conservation space, and I've been doing that for just over 20 years now. So really working to safeguard and protect our blue planet, which is 70% of the world, which is made of the ocean. And a lot of people are not aware of what goes on in the ocean. There's obviously, because it's such a vast area, there's a lot of activity that happens there from fishing, often destructive or illegal fishing, but also the effects of climate change on the ocean and the need for sustainable seafood. And, there's just the need to regulate and safeguard our regulate activities and safeguard our oceans from the ever encroaching activities that humans are having on the ocean. So that's what I've been doing for the past 20 years. And that's our mission, is really to protect life in the ocean. Yeah. So.
Wow. I mean, what drew you to the work that you do?
Well, so my passion for the ocean goes back as far back as I can remember. I was a little girl living by the sea in the Netherlands, but I also moved around and lived in West Africa in Gabon for a couple of years, and really got to know the ocean and all the beautiful and tropical fish and wildlife that lives in or by the sea. And that really drew me to the ocean, and all my studies and all the sort of projects that I've chosen to do from as far back as I can remember, even school projects and university projects, they were all focused on the ocean. And so when I left university, I studied biology and then environmental technology. But when I left university, I started off as an environmental auditor and doing environmental due diligence and environmental impact.
Wow.
But I realized after 4 years that I wasn't fulfilling my dream or following my passion. So about 20 years ago, I redirected my career to what I'm doing now, which is working for the ocean. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. And you also just released a book called The Ocean and Us, right?
Yes, that's right. So The Ocean and Us is a unique book, first of its kind, that brings together and explores all the different ways our lives interact with the ocean. And it's written in easy to follow language, and each chapter is written by a different expert. They all happen to be women, but there's 32 informative and inspiring chapters, each written in very easy language. It's not meant for an academic audience, but it's everything from the role of fish in the carbon cycle to the blue economy to marine animal welfare. That's something people aren't familiar with, how animals are treated. In fisheries world, we kill trillions of animals each year.
Oh my gosh.
And often that happens in a very sort of barbaric way. But also things like communities in the ocean, ocean tourism, the aquarium trade, just every way that our lives interact with the ocean is explored in The Ocean and Us. And each chapter also provides suggestions for what the reader can do to help improve that area, to take action to help the ocean.
Wow. I'm kind of speechless. And I felt the same way when we met. We met at 1% for the Planet, a meetup. And we kept getting interrupted, and then I would find you again and be like, I need to hear more, and I immediately knew I wanted you on our podcast because I really wanted to ask you this question because I just want it documented in the world. It's my favorite question to ask. But before I do, I'm just going to let our audience know that we post a new episode the first and third Wednesdays of every single month. So hit that like and subscribe button and turn on your notifications to hear more inspiring sustainability stories. Okay, back to it. What is the role that you feel like you and The Ocean and Us play in the transition to a more sustainable future for our blue planet?
Sure. Yeah. So, so whilst we work on a variety of issues relating to the ocean, our main focus right now is on stopping the next climate disaster from starting, and that is deep sea mining. So when you talk about a transition to a safer, more sustainable world, people might not know this, but there's this rush, this new kind of emerging industry underway that doesn't yet happen, but is imminent if we allow it to go ahead, if we don't create awareness about it. That's called deep sea mining. And deep sea mining is the idea that we're going to go into the deep ocean, so 4 to 6 kilometers deep. I don't know what that is in miles, but I don't know, 4 miles deep into the ocean to mine minerals. So to basically strip mine the ocean floor and take up and extract those minerals. And the argument that the miners are giving is that we need those minerals for the transition economy. But that argument is flawed because, first of all, the companies that they say need these minerals, so the car companies, electric vehicle companies, they are already pledging not to source minerals from the deep sea, and they're supporting a moratorium, so a ban on this industry, because we already see that technology is changing so rapidly because it has to.
It has to.
Yeah, it has to. And the new technologies that that are already successfully being demonstrated by companies such as BYD or Tesla or Volkswagen or BMW, they are already not reliant on these metals that the miners say from the deep sea. So, but anyway, as we are shifting, as we need to move towards net zero, there's a handful of net zero. I guess your audience knows as we move towards, stopping the emission of CO2, of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The mining companies, a handful of companies, are taking this opportunity to say, yeah, so in order to achieve that net zero, we need to start mining the deep sea for those metals. But if anybody is paying attention, we don't need those metals. We can be, our technology is changing, which is the number one reason why we don't need those metals, but also we can be more efficient with waste recovery. So recovering minerals from our waste streams, as urban mining, we can be more efficient in how we mine on land, and we can set a much higher bar for terrestrial mining to ensure that there's no contamination or less contamination. We can ensure that we have high standards in terms of labor practices. And importantly, and I used to be an auditor before I started working in the ocean conservation world, we can audit terrestrial mines, which is something we cannot do in the deep sea, and we can regenerate areas on land. So I'm not an advocate for how we mine on land at all. There's so much needed right now. But the idea that we need to go into the deep ocean is simply just flawed, but also very irresponsible. Because another thing about deep sea mining is that if we allow it to go ahead, it's going to happen in international waters. And this means these are the areas beyond the national jurisdiction of any one country. And this area of the ocean represents half the planet. It's 64% of the ocean. So it's a huge area that if we green light deep sea mining, we're essentially opening up the floodgates to a new era of colonialism where countries are going to start staking their claim in the deep sea. And there's no way to ensure proper accountability or to hold countries or companies to account if things go wrong. I mean, if something happens in sovereign waters, so for example, the USA, if something were to happen off the coast of California, you can hold a company to account, you can take them to a judge, you can sue, you can, claim damages, but you cannot do any of that in international waters. And I can't stress enough how dangerous a precedent it would set.
That's so dangerous. Yeah.
So, and just I guess a bit about why it's important to protect the deep sea and why it matters. I mean, it doesn't belong to anybody, so why should we care? I mean, the deep sea is almost, you could consider it the cradle of life. I mean, it's ecosystems there are ancient. We have corals there that are several thousand years old. We have fish that grow several hundred years old. And the ocean we know to be the world's largest carbon sink. So all that CO2 drawn out of the atmosphere is largely being absorbed by the ocean and then stored in the deep sea, in our seabed. So if we start messing with that seabed and start dredging and mining that seabed, we're re-releasing that carbon back into the water column and causing all new problems. So no, we really should just leave the high seas alone as an area for peace science and be much better at innovating, which we are. We're innovators, so we can do much better.
Yeah, we're on the track of the correct innovation. This one is not the right way to innovate. I actually have like almost an asinine question, but I'm really curious. Maybe you know, but we can't get down there. We can't like physically go down. Like,
That's right.
You know, like what was it? A few months ago, the ship that was visiting the Titanic like disintegrated.
That's right.
It was so unsafe. So how could we ever make sure that anything we put down there is safe, you know?
Well, I mean, and that comes back to my point of regulating, right? So, I mean, the example you gave of the Titan, which was the name of the vessel that went down to the Titanic.
Yeah. Thank you.
That only went down, I don't know, a few hundred meters or so before it imploded.
Titanic
sits at a depth of 3 kilometers. And deep sea mining, if allowed to go ahead, will happen at a depth of 4 to 6 kilometers. So way deeper than where the Titan ever went. But even if, I mean, obviously the mining companies have the ROVs, the remote operating sort of vehicles to go down to these depths. But again, there's no way of auditing or regulating. You can't send somebody down there to enforce the rules or to make sure things are happening as they should. So it's so expensive that even if we had the technology to just, send a submarine down there, who's going to pay for that? Because again, it's international waters. Which country is going to spend tax dollars on going down into such crazy depths to enforce rules or to make sure that everything is going as they should? No one's going to do that. And that again comes back to my fear of allowing this industry to go.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially going to be unregulated.
Completely. And the people that are operating those submarines would likely own also a piece or a part of this mining. And then they show it's like the same corruption that we see on land, right? They show the stuff that's working well and doing well, and then not the other pieces. Wow,
well,
it's really
to show the other pieces anyway, because you have to imagine when you're mining in the deep sea, everything there is very slow growing, right? I mean, it's under enormous, sort of kilometers worth of pressure. That's enormous, and any disturbance you cause at such depths is going to cause sediment plumes, sort of like underwater dust storms, and they will travel slowly but surely over huge expanses of the seafloor, but also the water column. And so there's no way, even assuming we had the capability to go down there and be the sort of watchdog while they're mining down there, there's no way you can actually see anything, because you're going to be in the middle of this indefinite sandstorm, because these mining vehicles will be mining 24/7 and 7 days a week and for 4 months on end. So there's no way you can even sort of monitor what's going on down there. And we know from test mining that happened, I think it was back in the 70s, so well over 40 years ago, that when they returned a few years ago to where they were mining 40 years ago for test mining, those areas did not recover at all, not in the slightest. So because these are ancient ecosystems, right? They have taken these nodules that they want to mine, have taken millions of years to form. So they're not going to come back in human timescales, right? So what I always call this deep sea mining, I call it a sort of a new form of fossil fuel, because again, it's just like fossil fuels by definition are ancient fuels, right? They formed over long periods of time. And that's the same with these nodules they want to mine from the seafloor. They are ancient. They are millions of years old. So there's in no world is this a sustainable or renewable new industry. It is just an industry taken from our history of being extractive, being linear, extractive, and destructive. They're not giving anything, they're taking. There's nothing circular about it. So, but most people are not aware that this is happening. And so that's why I'm really happy to be here, to be able to talk about this and to get people to understand that this is really happening without, the eyes of the world watching. And we need to change that so that we can stop it. That's the great thing of this campaign, is that it doesn't yet happen yet. Deep sea mining doesn't happen. We can stop it before it starts. And that's where I draw my hope from. because there are no jobs at stake. There's no investments made so far. And if we
Yep.
can all wake up to this and tell our governments that, hey, we don't want this. I mean, 24 countries have already spoken out to say, no, we don't want this. So we need to get many more countries to say no. And that is down to the voters, down to us to stop this industry before it starts.
So I guess if someone did want to get involved, kind of what would be their steps to try to get their voice heard on this issue?
Sure. Well, I mean, so one of the projects that we're developing right now, because when I came back from the International Seabed Authority last summer, and I was, watching how these governments were kind of just negotiating, and a lot of this happens behind closed doors. It's obscure lawyers in suits that kind of decide the fate of our ocean and therefore our future. And I was thinking, well, but this would not be, if people knew about it, it wouldn't be acceptable. So one of the things I'm working on right now is a project to engage stakeholders, everybody from universities to the fishing community, to First Nations people, to conservation groups, all along the west coast of the Americas, from Alaska down to the south of Chile, engaging with them, getting them to sign a declaration to show that there's no social license to mine the deep sea, and we would take that back to the International Seabed Authority. But also along the way, we would invite people to on our journey by train. We would invite people on our journey between stops and they would be high-profile people or scientists or local politicians or musicians, sports figures, poets, to talk about what the ocean means to them and really, explore what the connection is to the deep sea, because everybody is connected to the deep sea. We just don't know it ourselves, and as soon as we do, then the ocean becomes relatable, the deep sea becomes relatable, and people want to play a part in safeguarding it. So my plea would be for people to check out the oceanandus.org and our Hope Tour, the Ocean Hope Tour, and support our work there. There's also a petition that we set up just last year, and that collected over 340,000 signatures already.
Nice.
So it really is an issue that when people realize what is at stake, then they want to speak out. And there are ways to speak out. As I said, 24 countries have already said no because people like those listening right now have spoken out, signed the petition, supported projects like the one I'm developing right now, because those are the way that, that's the way we can actually mobilize on this issue and make change happen.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. And is the list of the countries on the Ocean and Us that have signed,
there should be a link to that. But I mean,
Okay.
I don't know all the countries off the top of my head, but it's countries like France and Germany and Spain and Canada and Chile and Costa Rica and, a bunch of countries in different geographical regions. And that's also what's beautiful, is that we're seeing this kind of movement building, this resistance to deep sea mining from all corners of the globe. So that's, globe doesn't have corners, but from all parts of the world, we're seeing this resistance building. And again, like also lots of different companies are pledging their support for a moratorium on deep sea mining. And, we have a very short window to achieve this. We have until 2025, in the summer of 2025, which is the next big moment where governments will decide whether their mining code is ready and whether they're ready to greenlight deep sea mining. But our job is to make sure that they're not, and that that it's clear that there's no basis to do so.
Where do they make this choice? So, is it like a UN choice? Like I guess we're talking about multiple countries, so
Well, exactly. I mean, so basically, it's you have most of what happens in the oceans, kind of in the high seas anyway, and is decided by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So it is a UN convention. And out of that convention came a couple of agreements, and one of them was on the deep sea, what's called the International Seabed Authority, came into existence. And so they don't technically report to the UN, but they were born out of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and their headquarters is in Kingston, Jamaica. And it's countries, they have membership, and I don't know the exact number. I think 167 countries are member of the International Seabed Authority. So that's where decisions are made. So it is a multilateral sort of body where countries make decisions collectively over the fate of the deep sea. But some countries are asleep on this issue, and other countries are more active. And and of course some countries have more influence just by virtue of the size of their economies. But in principle, every country should have a fair say in this body, and it's up to us to make sure that our leaders, our voice, speak for us and not for the handful of greedy companies that want to make a profit off of the deep sea. It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in. I just got a little afraid, because it will change our planet. I'm thinking about this is just, I was at the spa and I was pushing water under the ground you could see a shadow, and so I was watching the shadows underground without disturbing the top of the water, and I could watch, it's actually very cool, I could watch the ripple effect just under the water. And it actually made me think of you, because I was like, I wonder if she's ever done this. It's actually really cool. But you could watch with the shadow and how it moved and how it impacted the rest of what was happening under the water, but you couldn't see anything at all on top. And I just thought, if we're impacting the bottom of the ocean this way, we are going to impact the entire world. And what you just said, it made it real for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you've spent any time in the water, a bathtub even, or a swimming pool, whatever, you know that the deeper you go, the more pressure there is, right? The more weight you feel. And so just imagine how much extra pressure there is at such immense depths. And indeed, how much, whatever we do down there is going to impact what happens up here.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. I mean, the ocean, when we talk about climate change, right, we talk about having to reduce emissions. Absolutely. We need to get to net zero. No question about that. But what people often don't sort of connect or don't realize is that it's because of what the CO2 is doing to the ocean that is affecting us, right? These extreme weather events that we're seeing, that's not because of the CO2 per se. It's because of what the CO2 is changing in our oceans. Our oceans are becoming warmer. The oxygen content in our ocean is reducing. They're becoming more acidic. But just by warming the ocean, that's what's creating extreme weather events around the world, right?
Yep.
Extreme rain or storms or whatever. And the ocean absorbs 90% of the heat from the atmosphere and 25% of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But it's only a healthy ocean that does that, right? So if we kill our oceans, which we're doing quite successfully right now through overfishing and pollution, and now with threats like deep sea mining, if we kill life in the ocean, then we also kill its ability to carry out those very functions that sustain life on Earth, that allow our existence on Earth. And people don't maybe understand or appreciate that 50% of the oxygen that we breathe, half of all the, every second breath we take comes from the ocean. So we think of the rainforest being the lungs of the planet. Yes, they are, but actually the oceans, and it's not surprising because it makes up 70% of our planet. We are a planet ocean. The ocean is what provides us with so much oxygen and regulates our weather and our climate and everything else. So it is imperative, it's essential that we protect our oceans. It's not just because I love all the living creatures in the sea, which I do. I mean, in the deep sea, you've got wonderful animals like Casper. There's an octopus called Casper. And it is a beautiful translucent octopus, very cute. You can Google it and see images of it. But you have the most amazing deep sea creatures living down there. Again, several hundred years old, sharks that are 400 years old and fish that are 200 years old. And so for me, that's just like, wow, that's history swimming down there. Get so much of our medicine and scientific breakthroughs from the deep sea. So there's one of the enzymes used in the COVID test. It actually comes from the deep sea as well. So don't want to destroy what we don't know. We haven't even touched or scratched
we don't
surface of the deep
sea.
Yeah,
we can't go down there yet. We don't know what's down there. We can't. We need to understand it. We need to research it. To your point, not destroy it. Wow. Thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Yeah, well, someone's got to do it. You know what? I think we can all do it, right? So it's what I love about the work is that it's it's also collective effort, right? Because it's in all our interests. So it's not like, we're trying to sort of build something on our own or trying to sort of, it's really about all of us. And that's why we're called the ocean and us, right? Because it isn't about as anybody's single success in life. It's about our collective success and our collective survival. So I would just urge everybody listening to check out theoceanandus.org and get involved and support our work. And yeah, there's a great film about deep sea mining. It's only 18 minutes long. It's called In Too Deep: True Cost of Deep Sea Mining. It's on YouTube. You can watch that and get a good sense of deep sea mining. And yeah, and really just talk to your friends about it and share what's going on, share the work, and sign the petition. Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to put the link to the petition and to the Ocean and Us in our show notes, and also the blog article that we will share with this. If there's anything else you want, how people can connect with you, how people can get involved with the Hope Project that you're working on, now would be the time to share.
I mean, obviously follow us on social media, on Instagram at @theoceanandus_official, but also on Facebook, The Ocean and Us, LinkedIn, The Ocean and Us. The Ocean Hope Tour, we have a dedicated page on that. We're developing much of it right now, but there is a page on our website at theoceanandus.org called the Ocean Hope Tour. Go check that out. And I would urge you to support us, but to follow our social media as well, so you can stay engaged, especially as we embark on this journey. Then you can stay up to date and find out where we are and whether we're coming through your way. And yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like there's
really
a lot
excited to follow that.
Yeah. A lot will be happening in 2024 before that 2025 deadline. So definitely time to get involved.
New year, new beginnings.
Absolutely. Gosh, thank you so much, Farah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information with us and for our audience. Truly appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.